Now, between joining an online server or just scrolling through the workshop, either way, you're going to be left with a mess of mods to choose from. Mods are here to help, but I've definitely wasted hours of my life just scrolling through mods, getting lost in the sauce. I'll be going through what I wish I knew sooner before jumping off the deep end with mods in Project Zomboid. Now we're going to take the mods from the last video and build upon this into 5 categories. 1 being non-negotiable foundational mods, 2 being health and status tracking, 3 are overall map improvements, 4 are in-game indications and overall UI clarity, and 5 will end off with inventory management. There will be a bonus at the end, but all these mods are focused on improving the overall quality of life without changing the in-game mechanics. We're not going to focus on adding new items, locations, spawns, or any of that, since it can be overwhelming from the start, but we gotta crawl before we could walk. First up is a must-have, and that's going to be mod options. It adds an additional tab within your game options menu, and this allows you to quickly configure any of the mods enabled, dependent on if those developers actually created options for you to choose from. Not all mods use mod options, since you can see combat text and swap it, have their own individual tabs, but this is always good to have just in case the mods are leveraging this. Now, in parity to this is going to be Mod Manager. It gives you an additional UI from your menu just to either filter through the existing mods, easily create presets, and manage which mods you want for certain playthroughs. Here's a quick example of me just toggling on the mods I have enabled on this preset, and you get a quick view on which you either want to keep going forward with or turn off. Between this and mod options, they are both essential if you're going to be starting out. Now, on the topic of health alerts, this is going to be a 2-for-1 covering the mods of Injury Indicator and Mini Health Panel. With Injury Indicator, you get a notification right above your character around what body part they experience damage. That same can be paired up with the Mini Health Panel in the bottom left corner, which shows you exactly where you took damage. If you don't like the default pop-up, it also has another option for you to choose from. Here we can see a little speech bubble pop up, and in addition, in the bottom left corner, Mini Health Panel shows us where we took damage on our hand. It'll even pop up automatically if you need to change your bandage. That is seen as orange, and as I remove my bandage, it'll then show up as red, being that I have to treat that area, and show up as tan if that area is good. And next up are a few options for displaying your character's statuses. First up, we have a minimal health bar, and that is all it is. You set it horizontal, set it vertical, and it just shows your health. If minimal health bar is too much, you have minimal display bars. You have the option to either move them vertical or horizontal, and configure each bar individually. You can set the color, change the size, or if you messed up your entire configuration, go ahead and reset them right into place. Next up, we have simple status. It gives you the values associated with every single status, in addition to the options of switching them into a vertical view, toggling off and on certain views, just to get the perfect setup that you're looking for. If that doesn't float your boat and there's still too much on the screen, we have the health bars, which also do the very exact same thing. This is just only limited to water, your core temperature, how much heat you're generating, your health, endurance, and your hunger. You can also change the color of them, resize them, and move them around just like the others. Now we're going to jump into a group of mods that improve the overall functionality of your maps. First up, we have the mini map. When you press your default map button, it pulls up a small map on the screen without interrupting your gameplay. There's also a radial menu built in for selecting the full map. You can click on M to open your map, press minus and plus to zoom in and out, change the perspective, remove and add the markings, and press X to jump out. Now I'll open up the menu, jump back into the map, and we'll go through a few additional mods. First up is Map Legend UI. Lets us toggle on and off the UI seen in the top left corner, which just gives us the overall indication of what kind of buildings are we actually looking at. The key is definitely helpful for making your plans, mapping out loot runs, and just getting a good lay of the land. Now we have Draw on Map. In the bottom left corner, we see some new options that lets us either draw or erase and set the line thickness if we want to physically draw on our map. Definitely adds the actual piece of realism if we want to draw shapes or just write out any personal notes that can't be reflected from some of the map symbols that come pre-baked. And on the top right, we're also using the extra map symbols mod to add a few into our grouping, in addition to the resize map symbol mod that lets us either make the symbol smaller or larger, which can be either done with any text markings or physical notes we write on there as well. if you jump back into your mini map, you'll still see some of those markings, but do note some of them may look either enlarged or a little blown out, depending on what thickness you're using on the pen. Icons do look the best, but lastly, if you do want the minimap to be on screen permanently, there is the Eris minimap mod, which will add it to the bottom left corner of your screen. Next up are going to be a pair of 2 mods that show you in real time the XP you gain in addition to the skills when you level up. While there are many traits of your character, this gives you a clear understanding on what contributes to what types of skills. If this is a little too noisy, you can also just leave this on for when you level up, just so you know when it happens, or just filter out on what you don't want to show. This transitions us into the combat text mod. It just gives you some health bars and damage indicators so you can keep track of how much damage you're doing to the zombies. If you're not a huge fan of the UI, you could always jump into the game options and pull up the combat text tab to either toggle on certain settings, change the colors, or how large some of these bars are. Now when it comes to getting more information around the weapons we're using, whether that be their condition or the stats, there are going to be 2 mods for that, one being show weapon stats and the other being weapon condition indicator. This mod is fully customizable, and if we take a look at the bottom of our hotbar, we can see a few color overlays over our weapons. All that gives us an understanding of the durability or how full it is if it's water, in addition to the charge of the battery. Now this isn't limited to just the durability, but also applies to the ammunition that we're carrying. In the top left, we can see the individual rounds as I fire them off, and then in the bottom of our hotbar, we can see the total number of rounds I have left. As you use your weapon, you're going to see an indication show up on screen showing you that your durability has gone down. In comparison, also in the hotbar, you can see that there are small icons in the top right corner of each square that also represent the durability. Now with show weapon stats, this gives you a few of the details about different weapons in game. Gives you a clear understanding of the damage it can deal, the class it falls into, in addition to the condition and the chance of critical hits. And with said, it's pretty clear that the meat cleaver is the winner. Next up we have the weather moodles mod, and it just simply adds some moodles for the current weather. This is not completely required or necessary, but it's always nice to have some sort of indication on the weather or the time of day. Also seen used is clear moodles. This gives us the actual details about how the status effects impacts our characters. We can see that I'm tired here, which impacts the damage I can do, in addition to what being hungry does to me, which shows that it affects my strength and my ability to heal, and this goes on for every other skill trait or negative trait that pops up as you're playing. To avoid any confusion about what a trait or profession affects on the character, more descriptions gives you those exact details. Regardless of the occupation you're choosing or the traits you're looking to select, negative or positive, it's going to give you all the details necessary. Depending on what occupation you choose, it may come already preset with either some sort of multiplier to a certain skill or a few levels in that skill. Fix XP view shows you the exact multiplier itself opposed to the percentage, and show exact level number does exactly what it says. Just shows you how many levels you get from picking that profession instead of counting every single tick. And lastly, we have the daily XP gains and stats report. At the end of every day after you rest, you're going to get a summary of everything you've done for the day. Whether that be the amounts of zombies you killed, the different skills you leveled up in, whether you lost or gained weight, and so on. This often acts as a helpful reminder to help you stay on track depending on what goals you're trying to hit every day. And to close this out, we're going to quickly touch on character customization. The first one is going to be the improved hair menu. Instead of just seeing the list of different hairstyles, we have some models to at least show us how it looks like on our character. Now on the right, we have the Fashionista mod. It just gives you a full view of additional options of all the customizations you can do with your character's look. Now this could be a little morally conflicting with your starting run, since you could give your character better gear from the start, but hey, it's up to you on whatever you want to do. Opposed to everything just being labeled as item, better sorting extends it with some actual definitions to the groupings and categories all those items fall into. On screen we can see categories for weapons, survival items, in addition to food, and it just makes filtering through your inventory a lot easier going forward. Now Craft Helper will add a new menu option to let you see any recipes associated with that item. Now with milk as the example, it lets us see that we can make some cereal or even prepare some muffins, in addition to seeing all the other items needed just to make that recipe. You can also filter by item category and then jump into the context of that item just to see the additional recipes. We can right click, open denim strips in a new tab just to see that we can also make Molotov cocktails, splints, and stone axes. Lastly, since it does bring in every single item within your playthrough, it's nice to see what items are also included depending on the mods you have installed. Now, one of my favorites would have to be simple add inventory. For any container that's actually held in your inventory and not worn, it will actually show up on your inventory menu. Here you can see that the plastic bag is held by my character, but still I can interact with it and move some items into it. Things you're not holding will show up as gray, but this makes it easy to interact with gun cases, suitcases, other backpacks on the floor, and more. Now we have a 2-for-1, and that's going to be reorder containers and reorder their hotbar. Here we can see me jump into my menu and move my hiking backpack down in addition to my actual character inventory. Same flexibility is seen for my hotbar, where I move my axe to position 2 and then back to 1, and move my hunting knife from 3 to 1 back to 3. And a small quick one is rename containers. Lets you rename anything you have in your home to anything that keeps you sane. I could rename my oven from Hot Toasty Boy to Burn My House Down Machine. When it comes to tracking skill bucks and magazines you may have already come across or ones that are on your to-do list, there's no good way to track them in-game. With has been read, you'll see a red question mark for something you haven't read yet, a green check mark for something you've already completed, or a question mark for something you've gotten halfway through. Also options to mark things yourself manually, and this also applies to CDs and VHSs. Another option to this is known and collected. A yellow triangle for something you haven't touched yet, some green arrows pointing up for a recipe book that you can use. If you see a few dotted lines above an arrow, that means you haven't finished the skill book, and if it's red, it's just out of your skill range. Similar to the others, this applies to media as well. Here we can see an overlay of me enabling both has been read and known and collected, just to give you a view of what both looks like in comparison to help you choose which one fits best. And lastly, we have alternative inventory rendering. This is a huge overhaul on the existing inventory we know. It has indications for books you've read, duplicate items in your inventory seen by that hand, and the little eye symbol if you have not come across it before. In addition, we can see that the cooking status indication has also been changed and updated with an actual percentage sign opposed to just a bar. When it comes to your attachments, for your weapons, you can see that live within your inventory in addition to the size of your magazine and how many rounds you have left in that clip. Now, there is no shortage of customizable settings with this mod, just similar to the others, but one interesting fact is that this could be enabled with known and collected, but not has been read. This is an example of the mixed UI and what I'm currently using today. And into our bonus, we have interface reflexes. Never get caught off guard if a zombie pulls up on you and you have all your inventory windows open. If you hold right click and aim, it'll immediately close out everything on screen so that you could quickly defend yourself or tend to whatever is urgent. Usually seen if you're fumbling through your inventory or checking the mechanics. Here we can see a zombie pulled up on me, but once I held right click, I was able to quickly fight him off and get back to what I was doing. And to close this out, I'm going to go over one last one, and that's going to be error magnifier. Doesn't really fit into our categories, but this is just for debugging purposes, just to help you understand what is actually going wrong. It includes the first few lines of the errors just to help you locate which mod is causing it, with options to copy it to the clipboard and open directly to the file to see the full log. Overall, Project Zomboid is your own sandbox. You can customize your experience, tailor it to how you want to play, and no one can tell you otherwise. Regardless, since we cover some of the basics, the next videos will end up covering some more in-game mechanic changes, things to add into your world, and more. Link in the description for all the mods used here, but definitely give it a read through. I couldn't cover exactly everything, but hopefully this gives you a good high-level overview. Big shout out to the Project Zomboid community for all the support over the past few months, but definitely leave a sub, comment, like below. Let me know what you thought about the video and the categories, or if there's anything you want to share with myself or any others in the comments. Thank you and have a good one.